little gouty lately, Beecham. You didn't bring any quack notions of powder with you, did you?
Well, as a matter of fact, I've got something here that might help you feel better. Put some of this in your coffee or your tea.
Much obliged. All right then, Doctor. I'm going to call your bluff.
All right.
What are you holding?
I have a full house and one not divided against itself. How odd.
Well played, Doctor. I thought there were going to be 4 of us here tonight. Where's that Clayton?
I don't know where he is. Clayton Green rarely misses an opportunity to take my money. This is all getting a little too rich for my blood.
Ooh, now you're not going to secede from the game, are you, Judge?
Sir, is a compact freely entered into, and one with due performance on my part, I will defend my right of withdrawal down to my dying breath.
Ooh, well, now let's not have bloodshed over a card game. I think I speak for all of us here, as well as Jeff Davis himself, when I say all we want is to be left alone.
A jest breaks no bones between friends. The judge has the right to leave the game if he so chooses. A mere game should not disrupt the unity of Southerns, especially on this eve of what may be our bid to once again fire a shot heard round the world.
Your clarion call to patriotism notwithstanding, Manning, I must resist you in one instance.
No?
There is no such thing as a mere game.
How's that again, John?
Well, every child knows that sport is nobler than work. Men are born for gaming, and it's the wager that makes the contest. In games of sport, we stand to suffer pecuniary loss and the humiliation of defeat. But in games of war, we stand to lose our liberty and that of our children's children.
To play a game is not to wage war, Judge. Now, the North thinks the South is playing games, but if she invades the South will fight.
Cards are a poor imitation of carnage, gentlemen. You'll remember I was an army doctor in the war with Mexico.
Which side was that again, Beecham?
And let me tell you, I have seen real suffering and death. I had to take up the knife to wrestle with death itself.
Now see here, in all games which have as their stake the annihilation of the defeated, Beecham, the man holding a losing arrangement of cards in his hands is thereby removed from existence. This, I submit, is the very nature of war. In war, gentlemen, you have the justification and the authority and the game all rolled into one. In games of war, it is decided what shall be and what shall not. War is the truest form of divination, for it forces a selection of quid over quo. Gentlemen, I tell you, war is God.
You're crazy, John. He's crazy at last.
Might does not make right. A man or nation that wins in war is not thereby justified morally.
Oh, speak to me not of the moral law. Moral law is an invention of mankind for the disenfranchisement of the powerful in favor of the weak. In all questions that have moral ends, gentlemen, there can be no ultimate test. A man who falls dead in a duel is not thought thereby to be in error as to his views. Moreover, his very participation in the contest gives rise to a newer and broader view of it. Men's differences ultimately are trivial, but they must be ineluctably pled before the court of Mars. This is the higher law, truly, sir. Before the deity of war, there is considered all questions of what shall be and what shall not be. Before the god of war, there is no place for special considerations of equity or moral right. The views of the litigants are despised. I tell you, before the god of war, where there is decided matters of life and death, all lesser questions are to be answered. Before the god of war, Doctor,
all lesser questions are subsumed, be they moral, spiritual, or natural.
Well, I respectfully dissent from your verdict there. I happen to believe that God created a moral, not a chaotic universe. Why, if things were your way, the whole universe would just dissolve into meaningless contention. Why, it'd just be a war of all against all.
Well, the judge is right to some degree. Success on the field of battle or off of it is no measure of morality. They only demonstrate who's the stronger at the moment. Why, if you read the history books, they're always written by the victors. You can't go to them to know who was right and who was wrong. If we want to know who was moral or what nation was immoral, we have to appeal to the God of the universe, the moral judge. And gentlemen, the God that I worship is not a God who favors a union based on constraint or force or held together by force of arms. Instead, God prefers a confederacy based upon the will of the people, consent freely given. The voice of the people is the voice of God. He's no tyrant. God, gentlemen, is a Democrat.
Well, there you go, John. God's a Democrat.
Gentlemen, whether we would be God's good servant or whether we'd be God himself, I ask you this. What rights had Mother Carolina under the old Union but that which she's prepared to assert on the field of battle? Our capacity to rule ourselves under the law positive becomes a reality if and when we use force and fire on Sumter and again turn her guns out to sea.
Am I to understand that General Beauregard has been definitely authorized by the Confederate government to fire on Sumter?
Rumor has it so. So far, Lincoln's refused every offer to buy the fort, and Anderson's batteries refused to evacuate it. We may have us a fight yet.
Clayton, what's kept you, man? We expected you hours ago.
Hello, Clayton.
Well, help yourself to some of my whiskey.
Looks like he's going to.
They're firing on that fort.
What?
No. It started about an hour ago. If you ride over to the Bayside, you can hear it. Yancey and Ruffin and their friends have done it at last.
Gentlemen, this was inevitable. It was inevitable, after all, that someday we should have to put up or shut up. I, for one, am delighted that our gallants have finally had the courage to demonstrate our hallowed convictions. Yes. Gentlemen, I tell you this. If South Carolina had stood alone, it would have been necessary.
Well, you would. Why, don't you all realize that we have no foundries to build artillery? We have no navy to keep our ports open. Why, they'll blockade all of our ports and starve us into submission inside of a year.
What was so inevitable about democracy failing?
One burst of artillery fire at a time. The British will keep open our ports so long as cotton is our king.
That's right.
And how can winged Hermes be so far behind the times? Democracy didn't fail during the Secession winter. She was carried in triumph, and by the common people at that, for they far outdistanced their leaders. I tell you,